We're starting on the bottom of page Yud Zayin Amud Aleph in Torah Ohr, where Parshas Toldos begins. First Maramar Parshas Toldos, quite a short one. Dira Maskal Eila Toldos Yitzchak. The pasuk is Eila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram Hailis Yitzchak. These are the descendants of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, which seemingly is quite obvious. Rashi gives its explanations on the pasuk, but Chassidus gives its own explanation about how that relates to Chesed and Gvura. Chesed is typically called the right hand. Gvura is typically called the left hand. So the Alter Rebbe starts off the mimer bringing in a pasuk from Shir Hashirim that says, that your left hand is underneath my head and your right hand is holding me. The left hand represents Yitzchak, which also represents the raising of the lower worlds up to the higher worlds. And the right hand shows on Avraham, which shows on the descent from the higher worlds to the lower worlds. So we could see literally from the avodah that they did, Avraham's whole thing was giving. He would give to passerby. He would give to anybody around him. He was known for his chesed, his kindness. What was he known for? He was known for his Eshel, the story with the angels, about how he fed them. Yitzchak, the one thing he doesn't tear that's not associated with either Avraham or with Yaakov is he goes down to the land of the Plishtim and he digs wells. Wells represent bringing up the lower waters that are deep underground up to the surface. Here's the mimer. To understand all of this, it says in the Shema v'ahavta. First, to understand all of this, we have to understand what it says in Shema v'ahavta, and you shall love. Which l'chera makes absolutely no sense. How are you able to command something to love? So to understand how you're supposed to love, we first have to understand the pasuk that says before v'ahavta that Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad. That in order to have v'ahavta, vav always connects to what's said previously. So the word v'ahavta and you shall love shows that it's a connection to what we said earlier. And earlier in the Torah, the pasuk Baruch Shem is not a pasuk. Baruch Shem is a Maimer Chazal that we stick into Shema. What's the pasuk before v'ahavta? The pasuk before v'ahavta is Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad, talking about Hashem's oneness. Through contemplation of the idea of Hashem's oneness, how there's no proportion, and we're be'en areich to Hashem. In fact, Hashem is Hashvai Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu. Hashem is our God and the God of our fathers. What does this mean, the God of our fathers? Of course, it means that He's the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. But what does this mean in Ruchnistic sense? It means the Aviseinu refers to Chachma and Bina. As we know in Kabbalah, that Chachma and Bina are almost considered the parents to the Midas and the level of Malchus. Aviseinu plural shows how it's referring to both Chachma and Bina, which Chachma and Bina themselves have no erech and no relevance to Hashem's essence, which is Adnu Chad V'Lo B'Chushman. Hashem is one, but not counted as explained in Parshas Vayera in Torah Ohr. Therefore, the only way for Hashem to be able to come down to be Aviseinu, to be able to be brought down to Chachma Bina, is through Elokeinu, through being our God. Why? What's the connection of Elokeinu to Hashem being able to enclose Himself in the levels of Chachma Bina? Because Shem Elokim shows is the name of Tzimtzum. So we need Elokeinu, a first Tzimtzum, then Ve'elokei, the Vav shows on a descent into a lower level of Tzimtzum that becomes Ve'elokei Aviseinu, to be brought down into levels of Chachma Bina. That's how Hashem creates the world. That's the explanation of the pasuk of Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad, that we focus on Hashem's oneness, how Hashem is Hashem Elokeinu V'Elokei Aviseinu, that Tzimtzum needed to be able to be brought down into this world. Through contemplating this, obviously, every single Yid will be able to have the desire to become one with Hashem and not to become drawn down into the place of darkness, which is this world. Problem is, that's only the level of Ratzeh. That's bringing out our desire to become connected to Hashem. But then we have to have the level of Shuv, the level of descent down into this world, that we draw down the energies and we bring our koiches into this world to work with this world. It says in the pasuk Yisar Nar Min HaCheshet that the benefit of light is seen specifically from the darkness, that through bringing down light, through bringing down Elokus into a place of darkness, a place of Tzimtzum, that brings out the greatest revelation. Hashem's will is that specifically this revelation should happen in Dira B'Tachtonin, and therefore the commandment of V'ahavta is the exact opposite of drawing down Hashem's existence into this world. almost in a way of Avraham, which we connect Avram to Chesed, which is the level of Yehavta. As Chazal say that it says that people should literally love Hashem's name through you. That you should behave in such a fashion, the literal interpretation of the Ma'amer Chazal is that you should behave in such a fashion that you make a Kiddush Hashem, that you honor Hashem's name through your actions. But in Ruchnistic sense, this means to draw down Hashem's energies down into this world, which was what done by Avraham Avinu when he gave food to even the Goyim and was telling them to know who they bench to. It's forcing them almost to bench in order there should be a Gilui Gilus in this world, that even the Arabs who, it says in Rashi, would bow to the dust of their feet, even they should recognize Hashem's greatness. This was accomplished through Avram, who came from above to below, Milamayla Lamata. Yitzchak had the opposite of it. Yitzchak's goal was to chayfer bayres, to be able to dig wells. The wells should be revealed from down here up to above. Like a physical well, through digging into the ground, that's how you bring the water up. Even though that Avram also dug wells, as we know, it says he made an Eshel, but it also says he dug wells elsewhere. But those wells that Avram built, it says in the pasuk over here in Toldos that Vayitzmum HaPlishtim, that the Plishtim sealed them up, which shows that the wells that Avram dug had no kiyum. They didn't last. They weren't permanent. Why? Because that's not Avram Avinu's Avodah. Avram Avinu's Avodah is chesed, drawing down Hamshacha from above to below. Yitzchak's Avodah was digging wells. This is why it says in the pasuk about Yitzchak redigging the wells that Avram dug. It says, "V'yikra l'hem shemais k'shemais asher kara lahem aviv." That Yitzchak gave them the same names that Avram had called them. However, the words themselves don't make. There's slight differences between the word shemais and k'shemais. That Yitzchak called them names. Over here, the word shemais has a vav in the word shemais. But when it says k'shemais asher kara lahem aviv, like the names that Avram called the wells, it says the word Shemus without a Vav. What's the difference between the Vav? The Vav shows on a continuation, on a Hemshech being brought down. So Yitzchak's wells, which that's his Avodah of Grod, bringing you up from below to above. There was a Vav, there was a Kiyam. As opposed to Avram Avinu, whose Avodah is not that way. In fact, his Avodah is the exact opposite. It says Kal Shemus without the Vav, without the continuation. Therefore, it says, when Mashiach comes, the pasuk says, Kiyatza Avinu will say about, the Chazal say that the pasuk Kiyatza Avinu that's brought down in Navi shows that we'll specifically be addressing Yitzchak Avinu as our single and solitary father. Why? L'chayro, we've got three Avos, and we're called the B'nai Yisrael. Why would Yitzchak all of a sudden when Mashiach comes be given such an emphasis and such a boost? Because the main schach, the main simcha that will be when Mashiach comes, when the Lamata, when down here, will be able to be raised up to the highest levels, as opposed to the level of Milamai Lamata drawing down the Shem's and Shachar. There's limits on how much you could draw down. Therefore, it says by Avram Avinu, it says 2 times Avram's name, Avraham, by the Akedah. What does this mean? What does this mean in the spiritual sense? The first time is showing on Amshachah down to levels of Chacham and Bina Netzils, which was, as we said earlier, the idea of Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu. The second Avraham, is being drawn down into the levels of Biyah, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah. As opposed to Yitzchak, which lifts up the world from below to above, this is able to connect to something that's infinite. This causes real tzchak. What's Yitzchak's name? Yitzchak's name literally means we will rejoice. Or more accurately, we will laugh. Because when does real laughter happen? Laughter happens when somebody comes up with something in a novel way. Well, a joke, for example. A joke is when you take something that everybody's familiar with and you twist it in such a way that a person realizes the novelty, that causes laughter. And chidushim always cause laughter. But the real tzchak happens specifically through our avodah, because the general policy is, it says in the story in the Gemara, that one of the Tanaim needed food. He wasn't able to afford anything. So he davened that he should be able to afford food. So he got a golden table leg. He got the golden table leg, but he saw in a dream that this golden table leg came from his table in Gan Eden. Of course, it wasn't a physical table because Gan Eden is spiritual, but for the analogy's sake, the physical reward of a golden table leg came from the spiritual reward he was supposed to get in Gan Eden. So he asked Shemayim to take it back. And the Gemara says that the greatest nace of the story wasn't the fact that he got a golden table. Like the greatest nace was the fact that Shemayim took it back, because generally it says that Mishmai Yavi Mishkal Shakli. Generally, Shemayim gives and doesn't take. That's in our context over here about Ruchnius, that the Eibusher gives Hamshacha. But Milmatzal Maila can only really be accomplished through the Averis Adam. Now we continue with the second paragraph of the first Maimer, which is on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Gimel, first column on the second side of the page. Here's the Maimer. It says by Avraham Avinu. It says Kachna take your son that you love, because a general rule is that people enjoy bookends. People enjoy the opposite of who they are. Similar to the way a person enjoys Maim Karim al Nefesh Hayif, the way a person likes cold water when they're dried out. The same as the exact opposite. Somebody who's freezing wants hot water. Therefore, Avraham Avinu, whose avodah was Meshachah drying down in the he loved the exact opposite which was Yitzchak, which drew from below to above. Because Yitzchak's avodah is the idea of pachad, fear, yira, bittul. This is why Avraham Avinu wasn't able to connect to this level of pachad Yitzchak. A bittul like this is impossible for any created being to be able to receive. This level of bittul, for something created to be able to reach from above, is impossible, because it says that if it says in Chazal that if Hashem stuck his finger, metaphorical finger obviously, between the malachim, all of them would be annihilated, meaning a level of bittul cannot be forced from above, it has to be achieved from below. Therefore, it says by the Akedah that Avraham took Yitzchak and Vayakar Yisrael and Zbeach V'mal Eitzim. Avraham took him and put him on top of the wood, or woods, plural. Eitzim is plural of wood. What does this represent in spiritual sense? This represents that Yitzchak connected to a level that was higher than both the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz HaDas. That's a level where the level of Pachad Yitzchak is able to be revealed. However, Avraham may not have been able to connect to the level of Yitzchak, but Yaakov, it says that Yaakov was able to connect to the level of Yitzchak. It says, Pachad Yitzchak Hayaliyah had the fear of Yitzchak. Why was Yaakov able to accomplish something that even Avram wasn't able to accomplish? Because Yaakov was the choice of the Avos. He was his Toldos. He was the one who was able to bridge the gap, Mikatza, Katza. He was the central being that was able to connect all the levels of Avos, because he's Teferes. He's between Chesed and Gvura. Therefore, he was able to say that he had achieved the level of Akei Avi Avram and Pachad Yitzchak. God of my father Avram and Pachad Yitzchak, which are the two levels, Avram and Yitzchak. Therefore, it says when Mashiach comes, because now that Yitzchak will be our father. Because now it's impossible for the level of Pachad Yitzchak to become Avinu, that there should be Amshachah down here. But when Mashiach comes, where there will be an idea of Bilam Avos, and that's that all negativity and all death and all Ra will be consumed. And the spirit of evil will be destroyed from the land. Then the level of Pachad Yitzchak could be revealed down here. That there could also be a level of Avinu, how it's drawn down to us the same way a father gives energy to his child. As it says in the pasuk, and in Isran and Tanya, love him, Nikas Etzor, Mesif Islam, Mipach Hashem, that the guy will be hiding in the rocks to be able to hide before Pachad Hashem, the fear of Hashem, which is connected to Yitzchak, Pachad, fear. And this is the idea of Elatos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the descendants of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram, Haile is Yitzchak, that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. The 2 times it says Avram, the 2 times it says Yitzchak. It's known from a physical mashal that a male is able to give forth life without any arousal, as opposed to a level of nukva. And even though there's a mila in the hisayrus of a level of nukva, but that can only happen through an arousal from the level of dichar, the level of male. And the real kayach of creation comes from the levels of nukva, from the levels associated with the feminine energies, because they take the levels that were imbued to them from the levels of male energy and be able to create new beings that had not existed before. The same thing applies with the energies of Yitzchak ben Avram Halidas Yitzchak. That the only way for a level of Yitzchak to exist, of Milamayla Matzah, it has to come through first through the Yisraelis from above, which we connected to the level of Avram. And then even after the Amshacha, the Avodah of Yitzchak starts, it still needs the connection to the level of Avram to bring it out in its fullest form, because Avraham is associated not just with Chesed, but also with Chachma. Chachma is a level that clarifies and purifies all negativity and all possible things that could hinder the growth of the next level underneath it. And that is the explanation of the Pasuk. Ela Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram Haidalit Yitzchak. We now continue with the beginning of the second mimer of Parshas Toldos, which is on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Daled, which would be the second column on Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Starts the Ramaskal from this week's Haftarah. The many waters are unable to extinguish the love between a Yid and Hashem, which in some Maimarim explains this refers to Tirdas HaParnasa, this refers to the difficulty of work. But the Alter Rebbe over here will give a different explanation, which is on a deeper level. To understand what the pasuk Mayim Rabim means, quote the Zayar says that Mayim Rabim Layachal Lechavas Ava refers to, says the Zayar, Dahu Nahar Ilah Deminei Nafkin Nahar Lim Kol Ivar. This is the supernal river that from it goes all the streams to all existence. Rivers flow from springs. Where do springs come from? They come from the depths underneath the ground. From the water that's under the ground comes the springs, and from the springs comes the river. It says, the one who sends the springs into the rivers. The energy for the spring comes from the water under the ground. The rivers themselves are above the ground. They're revealed. Therefore, Torah is compared to water, as it says, which is understood to be telling those who want to connect to Hashem to go learn Torah. There's the idea of spring within Torah. What's the idea of spring within Torah? This is the level of Hashem's wisdom, which cannot be understood. The same way a spring comes out of the ground and can't be revealed at source, so too Hashem's wisdom that is enclosed within Torah. There's also the idea of rivers. It says, the river came out of Eden to water the garden. This refers to the level of Chacham being revealed, coming down into the lower levels of Torah. The radiance of Shekhinah, which is revealed in Gan Eden, which is, as we know, Gan Eden is generally explained throughout Chassidus and Kabbalah to be referring to the appreciation of the secrets of Torah. This comes from the level of the Nar Yitzim Eden, and then it comes into even lower levels, all the way down to each person according to his own understanding. That's why, as it's revealed in Gan Eden, it's called the Nar, it's called a river. And this level, on this level, the level of Hashem's wisdom being revealed to the righteous in Gan Eden, this is what the pasuk of Mayim Ram is talking about. Mayim Ram Layachal Chavas Ava, that the many waters, that this Gilui of Hashem's presence is still not enough to quench the thirst that the Yid didn't have for Hashem. Because true, it's coming from very high levels, still it's not enough. As it says, who is like you in the heavens, and I do not want any other than you in the earth. Which, as pasuk is explained to be referring to, Shemayim is referring to the higher levels of Gan Eden. Aretz is referring to lower levels of Gan Eden. Which Gan Eden is a revelation of Hashem's presence. That's the reward. Nevertheless, it's still not enough, because that's not the real revelation. The real revelation is going to happen when Mashiach comes by Tzchias HaMesim. It says, Ma'yatz and Beis Hashem. The pasuk of the Mayan, the spring coming out by Mashiach's times, is talking about how it comes out by the Beis HaMikdash by the time of Tzchias HaMesim. That refers to the revelation on a much higher level, the real revelation of Torah. The only way to reach this level is through the involvement of Torah mitzvahs. It says by last week's parsha, by Rivka, that says in the pasuk of Atira Ayin of Atmale Kada, that she went down to the river and she filled up her Kada. She went down to the spring, not the river. Because to say the river would be referring to reveal levels. She went to the spring, she went to the source of water, and she filled up her kad. What is a kad? A kad is a jug, obviously in Hebrew, but the word kad itself shows on the 24 books of the Torah that from them the spring of Chachma comes out and spreads into all the levels. This revelation will really happen when Mashiach comes. However, to have this revelation, you need to perform Torah and mitzvahs. Which is Vatera Aina, that she went down to the spring and she filled up her Vatamale Kad and she filled up her jug. This removal of the energies from the spring. How does this happen? Who was the one who physically did it in the pasuk? This was Rivka. What does this Rivka mean for us? To understand what Rivka means for us, we first have to understand what Yitzchak means for us, because Yitzchak married Rivka. What's the level of Yitzchak? Yitzchak is tzaik, laughter, joy, which is revelation, which refers to the level of revelation of tzaddik that will be given to the tzaddik when Mashiach comes. As it says by the pasuk in Tehillim, that we say every Rosh Chodesh that Livyasan zeh yitzarta l'sachik boy, that you created the Livyasan to have schayk, to have rejoicing, which we know the Livyasan is the food that will be eaten when Mashiach comes, which shows that the Livyasan has an inherent connection to when Mashiach comes. If the whole point of the Livyasan is for tzchayk, we see that the energies that will be revealed when Mashiach comes, for example, the Livyasan, are inherently linked to the idea of tzchayk. That's why the name Yitzchak is future tense. Yitzchak. If it was just laughter, it would be tzchayk. Yitzchak means in the future there will be tzchayk, because this revelation will be revealed when Mashiach comes. This also explains the pasuk that is said when Yisrael was born, that tzchayk asa li Elikim, that tzchayk was made to me by Elikim. Shem Elikim. Again, Shem Elikim shows on the energies of Gvura. How we know this is the energies of Gvura? Because the pasuk says, "Kishemesh umagin Havaya Elikim," that Havaya and Elikim is a sun and a shield, which is explained in Chassidus to say that Hashem's name of Elikim shows on the ability to contract. The revelation that happens through Hashem's name of Havaya, that the energy and the revelation of Hashem Havaya should be through a cloak to be able to be enclosed within the world, the same way that the sun itself has a layer around it to be able to prevent the real rays of the sun from causing damage. Same way there's a curtain between the Parshas and the rays of the Beis HaMikdash. This sheath, however, this covering over the sun, could lead to the Nevi'im to feel themselves as an existence of their own, and through the various combinations of Hashem's name of Elikim, which, as we know, if you have 5 letters, they could be rearranged into 120 different combinations, and each combination gets lower and lower and lower to the point that the tzimtzum could be brought down even to negative things. Therefore, the neshama came down to this world to be an Oved Elikim, not Oved Hashem. The more accurate description of a person who does Avodah is an Oved Elikim, one who serves Elikim. Why? Because the whole point of his Avodah is to refine the Shem Elikim through his kafya and his habcha. This is also the explanation in the pasuk. It says, by the creation of the world, Sheber Elikim Lasis, that Elikim, Tzimtzum, created Lasis to affect change, to reveal the concealment of Shem Elikim through the bits of Hayesh, through Iskafia and Ishabcha, flipping over the darkness to light. This is accomplished by us having Mesiras Nefesh and davening and Torah mitzvahs. This is also the idea of Tzchayk Asali Elikim, Hashem made rejoicing for me, laughter. That the real laughter will happen through Shem Elikim. The same way you want novelty in order to be happy. Novelty causes joy. For example, the example given through Chassidus is a lion fighting in front of royals. Why on earth was it the biggest desire in the world to go to the Colosseum and see animals fighting animals? You can't have people fighting people. What's the novelty of bringing lions, tigers, bears? It's something that they're not accustomed to seeing a bear in an arena fighting humans, which, however disturbing that might be, that's a novelty. That's something that you haven't seen before. That's something that causes a new joy, and it's a schadshus. Now, this level of joy of something happening that couldn't have happened otherwise could only exist if there's a Shem Elikim, if there's a tzimtzum, because the tzimtzum prevents the revelation of Hashem's presence. Revealing Hashem's presence, even though there's Shem Elikim, what a novelty. But if there was no Shem Elikim, there would be no tzchayk and there would be no rejoicing. Therefore, the real tzchayk happens through Elikim, Hashem's ability to conceal and hide. which is why the real joy is going to happen when Mashiach comes, when our completion of our avodah, of changing over the levels of concealment that were created through Shem Elokim, which, like it says by the creation of the world, Vayar Elokim is called Shara Asav, Yinei Tei Ma'od, Vaychol HaShamayim, Hashem saw all he did and it was very good, and he completed the creation. That at the end of creation, that's when Hashem's true joy was revealed. But before everything was finished, there was no tzchak, there was no revelation of Hashem's joy. So too now. The goal is now to be an Oved Elokim, to turn over darkness to light. And when we complete our avodah, then it says, as we say in Baruch Nafshi, that the world the face of the earth will become new. Hashem will rejoice, Yud will rejoice in his actions, and there'll be a revelation of Hashem's tzchak. Therefore, Yitzchak is future tense on the tzchak that will happen when Mashiach comes.